The Young and the Restless. Spoilers. The hidden truth. Ian Ward's obsession with Nikki. Ian Ward had always been a man of manipulation, cunning, and unrelenting pursuit. Yet, his obsession with Nikki Newman went beyond his usual schemes. It wasn't just about power or control, it was about the secrets she carried. Secrets that, if revealed, could unravel the Newman family and forever alter the lives of those involved. Ian Ward's target, Nikki and Mariah. Ian's interest in Nikki was no coincidence. For years, he had circled her life like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Nikki's connection to him was deeper and darker than anyone realized, and Ian knew it. His recent focus on Mariah only added fuel to the fire. Why Mariah? Because she, too, was entangled in the web of mystery that connected Nikki, Ian, and, most importantly, Nick. Ian's motives were twofold: to expose the truth about Nick's parentage and to determine whether Mariah was his granddaughter. To achieve this, he needed Nikki to confess her long-buried secrets, a confession that could destroy her family and her marriage to Victor Newman. The rumor that won't die, Nick's parentage. For years, whispers had circulated about a possible affair between Nikki and Ian during their time in the New World cult. Ian's charm and manipulative nature had drawn many women into his orbit, and Nikki wasn't immune. While she eventually escaped Ian's influence, the possibility of a child from their union lingered. Nick Newman, Victor's beloved son, or was he? Ian had long suspected that Nick was his biological son, a result of his and Nikki's time together. Victor's cold demeanor toward Nick only added to Ian's suspicions. Was Victor's strictness rooted in disappointment, or was it because he knew the truth but chose to remain silent? Victor's silence, protecting the legacy or avoiding the truth? Victor Newman was a man of power and pride, but he wasn't blind. Over the years, he had likely pieced together fragments of Nikki's past, including her ties to Ian. Yet Victor never confronted her openly. Why? Perhaps Victor knew the truth but chose to bury it for the sake of the Newman legacy. Admitting that Nick wasn't his biological son would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the family's reputation, but for Victor's own identity as the patriarch of the Newman dynasty. Ian's leverage, forcing Nikki's hand. Ian's attacks on Nikki were relentless. He appeared in her life repeatedly, taunting her with veiled threats and cryptic remarks. "How long do you think you can keep the truth buried, Nikki?" he'd say, his voice dripping with malice. Nikki's fear was palpable. She avoided Ian as much as possible, but his presence loomed over her life like a dark cloud. He was determined to force her to admit the truth, that Nick was his son and Mariah was his granddaughter. But would Nikki ever confess? Nikki's inner struggle. Nikki wrestled with her conscience daily. She had spent decades building a life with Victor, protecting their family and their reputation. Admitting to an affair with Ian, and the possibility that Nick was Ian's child, would shatter everything. It would devastate Victor, alienate Nick, and leave the Newman family vulnerable to Ian's manipulations. In private moments, Nikki's guilt consumed her. She longed to protect Nick and Mariah from Ian's influence, but she also knew that the truth had a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it was buried. Mariah's connection. Mariah, too, was an integral part of Ian's obsession. As Sharon's daughter, Mariah had already been manipulated by Ian in the past when he used her as part of his schemes. Now, Ian wondered if Mariah's connection to him went deeper. Was she his biological granddaughter? The possibility both intrigued and unsettled Ian. If Mariah was his granddaughter, it would give him an even greater foothold in the Newman family. A family he despised and envied in equal measure. Nikki's dilemma, to confess or not. Nikki faced an impossible choice. If she confessed the truth, she risked losing everything: her marriage to Victor, her children's trust, and the Newman legacy. But if she continued to hide the secret, Ian would never stop tormenting her. The stakes were higher than ever, and Nikki's strength was tested like never before. She confided in no one, not even Victor. Her fear of Ian's leverage over her grew with each passing day. Yet, deep down, she knew that the only way to free herself from Ian's grasp was to face the truth head-on, no matter the consequences. Ian's endgame. Ian Ward's ultimate goal wasn't just to expose Nikki's secrets. He wanted control. If Nick was his son, Ian believed it would give him a claim to the Newman fortune and a chance to destroy Victor's empire from within. If Mariah was his granddaughter, it would strengthen his connection to the family even further. For Ian, it was more than personal, it was a strategic move to dismantle the Newman dynasty and claim his place as a force to be reckoned with. The looming confrontation. As Ian continued his pursuit of Nikki, the tension within the Newman family reached a boiling point. Nick sensed something was wrong, Mariah felt the weight of Ian's scrutiny, and Victor began to suspect that Nikki was hiding something significant. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation, one that would force Nikki to decide between protecting her secrets and revealing the truth. Would she admit to an affair with Ian and risk losing everything? Or would she continue to shield her family from the devastating consequences of the past? Only time would tell if Nikki's secrets would remain hidden or if Ian Ward would finally get the answers he sought. This storyline leaves room for intense family drama, emotional revelations, and high-stakes confrontations. Would you like to delve further into any specific character's reaction or explore how the confrontation might unfold? The breaking point, Ian Ward's revelation to Nick. Ian Ward had played the long game for years. Manipulating, taunting, and waiting. But patience was no longer a virtue he could afford. The weight of his secrets, the truth about Nick's parentage, burned within him. Ian had convinced himself that revealing the truth was not only his right but his duty. He wanted to claim his son, Nick, and cement his legacy, even if it meant tearing apart the Newman family in the process. Ian's decision to confront Nick. The decision wasn't an easy one. Ian understood that Nick's life was deeply intertwined with the Newman family. For more than 40 years, Nick had lived as Victor Newman's son, inheriting not just wealth but the Newman name, influence, and legacy. Stripping Nick of that identity would be devastating, and Ian relished the power he held. But Ian also knew the risks. If Nick rejected him, it could backfire spectacularly. Victor would retaliate with ruthless efficiency, and Ian's fragile plans could crumble. Yet Ian's ego wouldn't let him stop. He was determined to face Nick, no matter the consequences. The confrontation, Ian and Nick. One evening, Ian intercepted Nick at the athletic club. Nick, ever the picture of calm confidence, greeted Ian with his usual disdain. "What do you want now, Ian?" Nick asked, his tone icy. "I've got no time for your games." Ian smirked, unfazed by Nick's hostility. "This isn't a game, Nicholas. It's about the truth. A truth you deserve to know." Nick rolled his eyes. "I'm not interested in anything you have to say." Ian leaned in, his voice low and deliberate. "What if I told you Victor isn't your father? What if I told you that I am?" The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. For a moment, Nick didn't respond. Then he laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. "You're insane. Victor Newman is my father, and nothing you say will change that." Ian's expression darkened. "Oh, it's true, Nicholas. Ask your mother. Nikki and I, we had a relationship before you were born. She's the only one who can confirm it, but I assure you, Victor isn't your father." Nick's denial and anger. Nick's laughter faded, replaced by fury. "You're lying," he snapped. "You're trying to mess with my head. I don't know what your angle is, but it's not going to work." Ian's voice remained calm, almost soothing. "I'm not lying. I have nothing to gain from this but the chance to know my son. I've watched you from afar, Nicholas, and I've always felt the connection. Don't you?" Nick's hands clenched into fists. "Don't you dare talk about connections. My father is Victor Newman. He raised me, guided me," and Ian interrupted, his voice rising. "He didn't raise you out of love, Nicholas. He raised you out of obligation. Don't you see it? Victor has always kept you at arm's length. He knows the truth. That's why he's never treated you the same as the others." Nick's anger erupted. "Get out of my face, Ian. If you come near me or my family again, I'll make sure you regret it. The fallout, Nick's inner turmoil. Despite his outward rejection of Ian's claims, Nick couldn't shake the conversation. Ian's words echoed in his mind, gnawing at his confidence. Victor's strictness, his aloof demeanor, and the constant feeling of not quite measuring up, it all began to make sense in a way that terrified Nick. Unable to ignore the doubt, Nick confronted Nikki. "Mom," he began, his voice trembling, "I need you to tell me the truth. Is Victor my father? Or is it Ian?" Nikki froze, the color draining from her face. She had spent decades burying the truth, convincing herself it would never come to light. Now, faced with her son's desperate gaze, she realized the moment of reckoning had arrived. "Nicholas," she said softly, her voice heavy with emotion, "you're my son, and I love you. That's all that matters." Nick's voice sharpened. "That's not an answer, Mom. Is Ian Ward my father?" Victor's reaction, a father's fury before Nikki could respond. Victor entered the room, his presence commanding as ever. He had overheard the conversation and knew it was time to assert control. "Enough," he thundered. "Nicholas, I don't care what Ian Ward told you. You're my son, and nothing changes that." Nick turned to Victor, his frustration boiling over. "Is it true? Did you know? Did you know I wasn't your son?" Victor's expression softened, but his voice remained firm. "You are my son in every way that matters, Nicholas. I raised you, gave you my name, and prepared you to carry on the Newman legacy. Don't let Ian Ward's lies poison your mind." Nikki, caught between her husband and her son, broke down in tears. "I'm sorry, Nick," she whispered. "I didn't want you to find out this way. Ian, he might be your biological father. But it doesn't matter. Victor is your father." Nick's choice, loyalty to the Newmans. Nick stood in stunned silence, the weight of the revelation crashing down on him. Slowly, he looked at Victor, then at Nikki. "Ian Ward is nothing to me," he said at last, his voice steady. "I'm a Newman. I've lived as a Newman for over 40 years, and that's not going to change." Victor nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. "That's the right choice, Nicholas. You are my son, and no one, not Ian Ward or anyone else, can take that away." Ian's defeat and Nick's strength. When Ian learned of Nick's decision, his frustration boiled over. His plan to claim Nick had failed, and with it, his hope of using the Newman family to secure his legacy. Victor, ever the strategist, ensured Ian faced consequences for his meddling, using his influence to have Ian investigated and ultimately removed from their lives. For Nick, the experience was a turning point. Though the revelation shook him, it strengthened his resolve. He chose to embrace the family that had raised him, finding solace in the bonds he had built over decades. As for Nikki, she lived with the guilt of her past but found comfort in knowing that her son had chosen love and loyalty over bitterness. And Victor, while never openly admitting his knowledge of the truth, silently admired Nick's unwavering commitment to the Newman name. This chapter leaves room for future developments while providing a resolution to Ian Ward's interference. Would you like to explore the aftermath of Nick's decision or delve deeper into how the family moves forward?